Shrink the Nation is a podcast for thoughtful, informed adults, preferably with a pour in hand. The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the hosts and guests only, and do not reflect the views of any employers, institutions, licensing boards, government agencies, bourbon distilleries, or family members, especially our family members. They've asked us to be very clear about that. This show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical, psychiatric, legal, or professional advice. If you're in crisis, call a professional. If you're mad at something we said, we suggest journaling or emailing us with civility. We're here to challenge ideas, not diagnose strangers. We're clinicians, not your clinicians, and we have the bourbon to prove it. Let's go. All right, the government's clocked back in. So are we. The TSA is smiling through the trauma. Congress is walking around like nothing happened. 43 days without pay, stalled loans, frozen benefits. Somehow the official message is we're fine now. But here's the thing, Robbie. Systems reboot faster than people. When the lights come back on, the anxiety doesn't disappear. It just gets quieter. That's the cost of the instability you can't invoice. The collective fatigue, the burnout contagion, the quiet voice wondering if the next shutdown's already penciled in. I guess we'll know in January, right? Tonight, we're starting with what it really means when the government reopens, not as a headline, but as a stress response. So welcome to Shrink the Nation. We are back after our week-long hiatus. I guess we took a page out of the government's handbook and decided to take a week off ourselves. So go ahead, pour something strong as we try to figure out why Congress got to get paid without work while everyone else got to work without pay.
Nice play on words.
I'm David. I've got my 20 plus in the military. I'm still board certified somehow, which reminds me I've probably got to do something to make sure I keep that. I'll probably check my emails or something. They're probably sending me some reminders to
ABPN website.
Yeah, and the other one, I'm dual
Yeah.
certified. Yeah,
Yeah.
got to make sure I'm staying sharp on that. They were a thing.
Yeah. Hey, it's Rob, 25 years-ish as a psychiatrist and 30-ish military circles. And I am, this whole shutdown thing, it just so happened to catch me at a time where I was on active duty for that time frame, and the resonance, the impact that it had on our ability to plan, organize, conduct missions, to reassure our younger soldiers, it was relatively profound. In fact, for a good portion of that time, I thought I was going to be trapped to the end wherever I was at. So it did have resonance, and that resonance started to really expand toward the end. I mean, you felt it. You saw the Supreme Court get involved, and the food SNAP payments got partially put on hold, and money was coming from here, there, and everywhere illegally. It was already earmarked for other purposes, and it was just shifted around, which is an issue in and of itself that probably over the next 6 to 9 months will find its way in court and be adjudicated. So what kills me is that, how it lingered and lingered and lingered, and then the end felt just so utterly, predictably anticlimactic. It wasn't cheer, it was a deep sigh and time for a nap is what it felt like.
It felt like a really bad Thanksgiving dinner.
But they didn't talk about blowjobs.
Yeah, no, there was no talk of blowjobs. No, it really, yeah, it was anticlimactic for sure. It felt like a lot of peacocking, and then just, I'm not sure what it was for. I know now they're kind of strutting around trying to say we won, and by they I mean everybody.
Each side.
Each side. I don't know who won.
Well, so I mean that's a good question. Who won?
Not the people.
For our tens of listeners who, if you found your way to this show and you've actually stuck around, I am going to wager that you will know or know the term Pyrrhic victory. So back in about 300 BC, there was a battle. A general named Pyrrhus took on the Roman Empire, and they fought for weeks and weeks and weeks. Incredibly high casualties. No true strategic aims were achieved. Technically and tactically, Pyrrhus left the battle a victory, but is famous to have quoted, "Any more victories like this and we will be lost." So it's a battle of high attrition. It cost a lot. I think it cost both sides a lot. You can say tactically, the Republicans can say they won. They held strong. In fact, they made it through this without really really any concession whatsoever. Nothing came of it in the end. It just ended. And then at the end, the Democrats had some folks go to the other side and vote because the pain was becoming too much and we were seeing it. They can say and are saying they stood strong by their values, got nothing from it. Absolutely nothing came from this. So Pyrrhic, it is a Pyrrhic victory.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know if they got nothing from it. What this felt like to me, Robbie, we go back to the Murray-Bowen family systems theory. This was two parents who have not decided to have therapy yet. The Republicans and the Democrats of the House, they hate each other. And they are fighting over the kids. And they're both trying to torture one another through the children to trying to manipulate this family by manipulating the kids and just trying to make the other parent look worse. And this shutdown really, well, it looks like no ground was made, right? Like it looks like nobody really won. When we take a step back and say, well, the Republicans didn't give up any ground. That's true. They didn't really give up anything. However, what they did do was concede during the shutdown a lot to the children in saying, we don't care about a lot of these things. And so what the Democrats did show to the voters, the children, was that when push comes to shove, that they're going to fight against your SNAP benefits. They're going to fight against certain things that we care about. Now, what the Democrats showed was that we're going to hold those things hostage as well. And so from that family systems perspective is you have two really bad parents who are willing to leverage their kids to make the other parent look bad, just to prove to the kids how bad the other parent is. I mean, it's really ugly. It's really messy. It's horrifically toxic. Everyone comes out of this looking worse. And that's where I say there's really no winners. I don't know that the Republicans gave up nothing. They gave up, honestly, what they gave up was now there's going to be lawsuits looking for where's this money, right? Like why didn't you pay for these? They're going to have to concede that. You had judges ordering that they pay for SNAP benefits, and then you had them going to the Supreme Court saying, we don't want to pay for SNAP benefits. We don't want people who don't have food to have food. We had people who had to work without pay for long periods of time. We had people who were being fired for no reason. It was ugly for both sides.
They did alienate a good portion of their base. And this is reminiscent of, after a chaotic night, dad goes on a bender, screams and yells and scares everyone in the house, smashes a few things. He goes and passes out. And in the aftermath, mom comes to the kids to quote unquote reassure them. However, what she's really doing is, look at me. I'm the good parent. So right now, the Democrats.
I want to take a step back. This is like dad goes, hey kids, we're going to a football game. He takes the kids. The kids are thinking he's awesome. And the kids normally don't like dad. Like, yeah, dad normally ignores these kids. He's been ignoring them for their entire fucking lives. So dad decides he's going to do something fun with them. He has fun. But then he goes on the bender and he punches him in the fucking mouth while he's on the bender. And that's where mom comes in and goes, oh, look how your father really is. But the kids are like, yeah, but you're the one that gave him all the beer, right? So this is the fucked up family dynamics that we're looking at, Robbie, is that the kids, we're treating in the system like the kids are these dumb 6 and 5 year olds. But no, the kids are adults. Like they can see how bad well, maybe they can't, but they should be able to see how manipulated they're being. Yeah, they went with the cool dad for a little bit, but he's not cool forever because he does really shitty things sometimes. And even though these kids happen to like mom for a long time and they went with dad for a little bit, well, turns out he's not always great. But neither is mom.
There's such a repetition to these damn things now. They're starting to feel like seasonal allergies. They're predictable and they're miserable. The outcomes are almost the damn same. I still, every time this comes up, those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. And it happens over and over again. Now, what I will say, even though I don't think anyone came out as a hero, both sides came out a little villainous. What I will say is there was some kind of shift in the zeitgeist, as Keith would have said. Something changed in which the anger, the frustration, the focus on dinner table issues, the things like food insecurity, inflation, the cost of groceries, those kinds of things bubbled to the top. And they have, at least for the moment, become a focus. Whereas before, the particular Republicans were being pretty successful focusing on things like immigration, where their base is very much in support of some of those tactics or that focus. And now all of a sudden, as a nation, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, there is a general agreement that, gee, things don't feel good. 1 out of 4 Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And the cost of groceries is a real concern for folks, and inflation is a real concern for folks. So, winner, loser, what we can say is that this might be more, or at least what I would hope to think, this is a late teenager that's in the family. And they're looking around, finally seeing mom and dad are both crazy. Both of them are nuts, and they're going to individuate. They're going to step aside. And, I've mentioned this book so many times, but I find it gives me a great deal of anxiety and a little bit of hope. But the storm before the calm. And in that book, the prediction was that the 20s would lead to a new voting bloc. And that voting bloc would not be a voting bloc based on, as it currently is, which is very much culture war type things and skin color and college education, is determining who you vote for. And instead, this voting bloc comes together that transcends and really ends up uniting around being a working class individual in the United States at a time in which the middle class went from a very healthy post-World War II through probably the late 70s when we started to contract, that was wonderful and fantastic and great, to now an environment in which the ultra wealthy are becoming even more wealthy. Elon Musk, bless his heart, he got his whole $1 trillion package. My gosh. What do you even do with $1 trillion? What do you do with it? What do you do with that? I mean, you could spend $1
Live on
billion
it.
every day and still have 600 and some odd billion dollars. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's just like ridiculous. I think, at least my hope is, sitting here at the end of 2025, we're seeing a shift that may lead to this new voting bloc that may reprioritize the middle class.
I'm with you. And I think when you see a stalemate, like we just saw, people do start to get tired. When we were talking about the shutdown before, what we were alluding to, when we spoke about was that this was all about messaging, them trying to figure out who they could blame it on, right? Who they could really target and say, whose fault was it? Well, they let it go too long. They missed their window. Everyone is to blame. Nobody won. And I think it does kind of get to this point where the voters will struggle with trusting the people who were there. And I think that does kind of shift, like, who do you vote for? I think you're already seeing, I think the names of the parties are probably not going to change much because of the way that the system is set up. But obviously, the Republican Party has gone through massive change over the last decade. But the Democratic Party is starting to see that. You've already seen that in the most recent election cycle that just happened. And that is starting to happen too. And I think they're coming to that conclusion, especially after the 2024 election, is that something for them is going to have to change. And I think they're going to start to see that as well. And so I think what you're describing is going to start to play out. And I think psychologically that is just the trust that people have in the government is going to be hard to regain, and they're going to have to go out a different way. You have these two warring parents who are no longer doing right by the family. And so the family is going to have to start changing things up, taking over as you grow up and you start to realize that these two people who were previously in charge, running things, just, man, they deserve each other. And we got to start doing the laundry, right? We got to start cooking. We got to start taking care of everything ourselves, because these are not jobs. And I think that's maybe where we're at.
Agreed.
Are we on to the next?
We beat that one to death. Collectively, we just angry at both.
All right, all right, all right. This one's been coming up it seems like every year. Jamil David, thank you for this headline. No, for the love of God, Matthew McConaughey is not running for governor. And that was this last Thursday. But since somebody on TikTok decided that maybe he is, as he always could be, it's back. It's back. Matthew McConaughey, the man, the myth, the legend, potentially running for governor of Texas. I'm excited. My nipples are hard. Can't wait.
I can see it through your t-shirt.
You cut glass.
Yeah, well, he'd be a lot cooler if he did. So I find this fascinating, and it happens over and over again. And as I sit quietly watching Rome burn, I am struck by the culture that has developed in which, from my sense at least, psychologically, we have stopped looking at real and we have focused on celebrity fakeness, this aesthetic. Kierkegaard, a philosopher, spoke extensively about the aesthetic life, which he said was utterly wrong. You should seek a life of meaning and purpose, not a life for the sake of what it appears to be. But that's where we sit right now in the world, is that appearance matters more than substance. When I tell someone, hey, you're really authentic, that is about the highest compliment I can give in this day and age to someone. And here we are projecting capabilities upon a man who, to my understanding at least, has a certain vibe. I'll grant him, he wrote a book, he's got some folksy wisdom, but he's never done anything that would remotely imply that he has either leadership skills or political skills or an understanding of the needs of the state of Texas. And the best I could come up with is his campaign slogan would be, more all right, all right, all right, fewer wrongs.
So, first of all, you planted this image of Donald Trump with the toga and those, like, I guess, olive branches when you say
Yeah.
Rome was burning in my brain. Playing a violin. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely live in a time. What are the qualifications now to be a politician? Who are you describing, by the way? I mean, as you were talking, I know we were talking about Matthew McConaughey, but if somebody were to just jump in and hear you say, we're talking about a guy who has, wrote a book or had some, we could have been talking about, I don't know.
Every politician in the last 25 years.
Yeah, almost any number. Yeah, exactly. Because I think we've gotten so far away from what being a public servant really is. It's just a public servant, right? It's a job. It's a leadership role. It's a decision maker to do just that, to lead, to make very difficult decisions a lot of times, depending on what your particular role is. If you're in an executive position versus in a legislative position, we've absolutely turned our state and our national politics into a high school popularity contest that we all dread. It's the prom king, it's the prom queen. I saw him on TikTok. I've seen this guy's movies. I liked him a lot in that movie, and he had a great personality, did a great job. He's probably going to be wonderful in this position. I think at this point, surviving the media bombardment that you're going to get over time is the only real qualification that you need to be there. Because that's really, I mean, you're going out into the public life. All of a sudden, people give a shit about you. And for somebody who's giving up their private life, that's a really difficult concept. Really, you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, whatever, you do your thing, and nobody cares about you. You do whatever you want, do your weird thing, go about your day. You can just be you. But when you're in the public eye, especially at a national or state level, everyone cares. You can't do anything without somebody giving a shit. If you fuck up just a little bit, it makes the news. So, of course, people want somebody who's survived that and can navigate that and can be on TV and do interviews and speak eloquently and not make an ass of themselves. I say that thinking, well, not everyone who's in politics could do that without making an ass of themselves. It's attractive. It certainly is attractive to think, hey, this is somebody who could do that. I guess maybe the thought behind it would be, well, maybe they'll surround themselves with really good people who are good thinkers who can like feed them the lines and make it work.
I think I heard that story once before.
But yeah, I think the problem is that ultimately you're electing that person to do the job and to be a public servant. And at the end of the day, they're not the boss. The boss is us. And I think it gets missed, especially when they're running for these jobs, is that you're running for a job. You're not running to be CEO. It's a job interview.
You are. And I think what you're butting up against is that one of the qualifications for the job in this social media world is the ability to hold up projection. And so these individuals step into the public sphere and then they have to be able to absorb the projection of the tribe. The tribe looks at them, the tribe makes guesses about them, the tribe projects upon them whatever the tribe wants to project. So individuals will see what they want to see. And many times those are positive things. They see the best that they hope for. Sometimes it's negative. And when you are standing in front of the entire tribe, that projection is potentially crushing. So, someone who can hold up the projection. Now, psychologically, how can you hold up projection? So, one would be by strength, that you actually know who you are in touch with your core, you have a deep insight into yourself, and you have a mindfulness about yourself. That's one way that can give you the backbone to hold up these projections. There is another way, though. And this is the way that I am more worried about because this is the easier way. This is the more common way, is that you have a core that is so empty, so much of a void that all these projections just get poured in and you become like, a weather factory. Like whatever projections being poured into you in that moment is who you become in that moment. And that's much more common. True insight, true mindfulness is not the norm. And matter of fact, I would argue anyone who has insight into themselves and understanding their own psychodynamics is afraid of leadership for good reason because they question themselves. What's my motivation? Why do I want to do this? And when we're being truly honest with ourselves, anyone who seeks power, their motivations should be questioned primarily by themselves. They should be questioning their motivations. And a lot of folks aren't willing to do that. Now that's a real problem because we're not getting the leaders who are willing to do that. And I think in this environment, it's even worse because of the nature of everything being televised, everything being on social media, that you're constantly chasing TikTok, and TikTok will stay ahead of us. There's millions and millions of folks who at any given moment are chasing new memes and new projections, and that's a lot. To your point, I think Matt McConaughey's greatest strength is that he has proven over the span of the last 30 years since he came onto the scene in, I believe, Dazed and Confused might have been his first movie, and said the fantastic line, "You got to keep living, man." Livin. Since he, verbalized that ethos and he really lived that ethos and he's pulled it off and he's, danced around fires with bongos naked. He seems to have held up the projection. So that's his only qualification.
You do worry, I think, especially with an actor, somebody who's, especially now, I guess, with somebody whose ability to be a chameleon in that sense, to hold on to projection is kind of just hold any projection.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely worry about, especially an actor, because it's all very fake, and it's fine. I mean, that's his job, and he's very good at it. For somebody who is really just performing a role, we like it. Well, that's the job of the actor, is to connect with the audience, and great. There's probably a reason why people aren't wanting the actors who are great at being villains to run for office, because they're really good at connecting with that role, but you don't want them as villains, right? But I don't know that Matthew McConaughey has played a lot of villains, but I can't tell you. I'm not familiar with his library.
The closest thing he got to a villain was that car commercial thing he did that was the weirdest, weirdest damn.
Was it Cadillac stuff? Was it
It might have been
Lincoln's? It was
Cadillac.
like
I don't
Lincoln or
know.
something. I don't know.
It was
Yeah,
just creepy. You watched it and you were like, what? What are they? What are we selling here? So, dude,
the same thing with like The Rock. I mean, I think people always were like The Rock in there.
he's a hero.
We want our heroes to be okay. Yeah, I mean, sure, why not? I probably can't do much worse of a job than the people that we have in there right now.
Well, and projections, and this is the tricky.
And you smell when he's cooking.
I can smell something, David.
Yeah.
Well, and projections are interesting because the closer you get to this human, the more challenging it is to hold up those projections. Speaking of
I
projections,
bet The Rock smells pretty good though.
he, lavender
I bet
and
he smells.
vanilla.
No, he smells. I bet he smells like.
Like bourbon and bull sweat is what he probably smells like. Wouldn't that be unsettling? You know, that's a funny little thing that seems to be drifting out into the ethos is that Trump stinks. Like that's a recurring accusation that he smells bad, like when you're close to him. Now,
And he's almost 80 years old. I mean,
well, and most 80-year-olds do, right?
I've spent a lot of time in hospitals, and yeah, I would definitely say that I haven't smelled a
Yeah,
lot of really good smelling 80-year-olds, but he
for
has a nice
various reasons.
bathroom. You'd think like it's a beautiful bathroom that he has now in the White
A
House.
lot
I
of
just
gold.
assume
Yeah, a lot of gold.
beautiful, beautiful marble.
Beautiful marble. I'm sure he's got a high-tech wand that he can,
Yeah.
spray all his parts,
If he has the
but
same shower that LBJ had, then
it
he definitely
would
can
knock
spray
him
all his
down.
parts.
It would break his hip. At any rate, it is very difficult to hold up projection the closer you get to a human because you see their frailties. You see the weather. From distance, it looks like climate. Up close, it's weather. It's thunderstorms. It's the moment to moment variations. I saw a bad thing about me. Now I feel bad. I saw a good thing about me. Now I feel good. And everybody's like running in circles trying to just show the good things so that the boss doesn't get all discombobulated on that given day. One of the
Yeah.
nice things, powerful things for me about spending the better part of my life in the military is I have had opportunity to work for some really spectacular leaders, some really intelligent, bright, dynamic individuals. And what I have found was that they're not super common. Most people are mediocre, as it turns out. That's the bell curve. But the ones that bring institutional calm are the ones that are very grounded and they're not performative. They know who they are, they know what their mission is, and they accomplish it. They walk in a room and they're not taken over by the drama of the room because what they bring to that room is themselves and their understanding of themselves and their calmness with themselves. And that changes the entire environment. So they don't have to know all the X's and O's. All they have to do is have some sense of themselves. And we're not getting those kinds of leaders, my friend. We're not set up to get those kinds of leaders. And I think this was a quote from our last, well, we took our hiatus. We did a STN shutdown for a week. But prior to that,
Don't worry, everyone. We got paid.
right. There was a quote last week. So systems are designed to get the exact outcomes that they produce. And our outcome right now, we have designed a system that is absolutely designed to pull in individuals who are probably least psychodynamically capable of doing the job that we need them to do.
It's interesting. For a system that is designed to have half of the people despise you, I could not imagine some of the worst people to put into it than what we have. Some of the most thin-skinned people are currently sitting in roles that you don't want to have in those roles. In a leadership role, you have a system that is just set up to have half the people say, I hate you, for no other reason than just because. And it is really silly. It's really kind of funny. We've set up our politics like we set up sports, and maybe it's just because of the way that we consume our media at this point. We've turned ourselves into teams, and we just sort of root for our team with no appreciation for the fact that the real team is our country or hell, our planet or whatever, the success of all of us. And so it's instead of looking at our forward motion of our country as being our team, we look at Democrat, Republican. And if we just root for whatever side we're on and boo the other side, and then we have the most thin-skinned people making decisions who actively make decisions to punish the other side, which ultimately hurts the greater team. It really wouldn't work in sports if you had teams that did this the way that it's happening now. If you had sports teams that went around like physically trying to actually injure other players on the other team, you would just destroy the sport, wouldn't it? That's kind of how it's going. It's really, really messy, ugly. We got to change something. But all right, Matthew McConaughey. I don't think he's running for governor, but if he does,
All right, all right, all right.
do you think he'd win? What do you think?
I think in
What's the prop bet on that? What's the over under?
I think he would.
You think he would?
Well, I mean, here's what happens. He has name recognition. So when someone walks into the voting booth and they look at their ticket, more often than not, and I do this myself. I mean, I'll walk into a voting booth. I know who I think I want to vote for, but what always catches me off guard, are the 30 other individuals who I have no clue about. And that's one of the reasons why you want, a big name on the top of your ticket, and then folks who lean Democrat or lean Republican are just going to follow the ticket, right? The real question will be, and what we always see when somebody moves from this public outcry for them to run, that as they transition through the process, the projection becomes more difficult to hold up. They start to get attacked because right now nobody's digging through Matt McConaughey's life and finding every nutty, crazy thing that doesn't fit our perception of him. And as he would go through this process, there are, offices, there are folks who are dedicated to finding dirt, and they would find dirt, and they would find embarrassing things. And that would make,
That would be entertaining as hell.
well,
Yeah.
it would be hard to hold the projections up. And it depends. I mean, it depends on how he could navigate that storm. But I think he's got better than 50% odds.
No, you might be right. In this day and age, I'm not sure it would matter. It really wouldn't.
The question would be in this day and age is how shameless can he be? And if he can't be shameless, he'll drop out. But if he can be shameless, he would have a reasonable chance, I think.
I think if he wants it, it'd probably be his. Maybe. If he wanted to do it, I think he could probably do it. He'd just have to stay in the character. I think somebody just be like, stay in character. Be the governor. You'll be the governor. I think you just have to walk in and just do it. I imagine even if he just lost, it'd be like, just show up, dude. Just show up that day and just say you're governor. They'd probably just let you do it. Just be the wear a suit and just be like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the governor.
I'm the governor now.
All right. Let's do this.
Just, all right.
Hey, it's Rob from Shrink the Nation. As my friend David so eloquently states at the beginning of the show, we are clinicians, but we're not your clinician. We love to joke around and dive into the tough topics, but there's something really important we need to say. If you're struggling with your mental health or facing substance use issues, we want you to know you're not alone. We have dedicated our professional careers to mental health, and we care deeply about it. It's okay to ask for help. Reaching out to a professional in your area could be the first step toward feeling better. Don't wait. There's support out there, and it works. Please take that first step. We want you to be well. Now let's get back to the show. Oh, and don't tell David I said he was eloquent. He'll be insufferable.
Well, let's go final topic. We are on the breakup of the century.
The breakup of the century, folks.
This is the big one. This is surprising, a little sad, and just happened, right? So
It did. Last couple of days came to a head.
So this is the big one. We're all sort of getting over the shock of it. I remember exactly where I was when I heard this. There was a group of us standing in front of a storefront when the news broke. A bunch of televisions in the window, and we all sort of just started holding each other and crying. No, actually, so Trump dumps Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, apparently, we've got a new nickname. So
Of course we do.
the nicknames are here, and that's apparently causing some problems. But the ties have been severed. We now have a ranting lunatic, and her primary challenger has been endorsed, whoever that may be, as long as he likes the primary challenger, just so you know, I won't say this is a rare rupture, but it is a rupture. This is a new rupture, but with one of his earliest, loudest, and most loyal allies. We have Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she is now pushing for the Epstein files to be released and criticizing Trump's focus on international affairs. So this is upsetting Donald Trump, and he is tired of her now, and she is not apologizing. So they are over, at least at this point. So what do we think that you've got over the shock that this isn't working out?
Yeah, it's a heartbreaker. It's rough to go through a breakup right before the holidays. So this one's sad. I don't know how they're going to divide up the Christmas decorations. That'll have to be worked out. I'm sure there's probably a legion of lawyers to make it happen. The kitchen gear, all that. But it's sad. It's a sad thing when a breakup happens right before the holidays. However, this one very much psychodynamically falls into the relational realm. So when two people come together, and this is across the board, and our tens of listeners, I'm sure, have been in relationships and they've experienced this. When two people come together, they bring their A game, right? Because what other game you going to bring? You're going to be your best self. So you bring your A game, and that gives a lot of handholds for your partner and for you. So this is happening reciprocally to project your greatest hopes, dreams, wishes on that other person. And it's a wonderful experience. I mean, it truly is maybe one of the most magical experiences that humans get to have. Not only are you with somebody who you see the best in, and you see all the needs that you've carried being met by them, they are doing the same to you, and it feels amazing. It feels absolutely magical to have all these projections. Now, life intervenes and life happens. And because life happens, those projections start to break down. And that's the transition that relationships have to go to in order to become long-term relationships. You see the frailty of your partner and you reconcile that frailty. You demonstrate your frailty and your partner reconciles that frailty, and you still find each other good enough, actually better than good enough. And that's how relationships are supposed to work. In this case, what we're seeing is that they were able to project on one another certain things. And she certainly projected upon him all the things she believes in and wants to be true. And he saw her as this steadfast supporter that was always going to prop up his ego. And in this last, period, this government shutdown period, she has made some shifts. Now, the fascinating thing for me, or the question, and I'd like to hear if you have an answer to this, she's been in Congress now for, I think this is her third term. Is that accurate?
Yeah, she came in 2020, so she would have been reelected 2022,
All right.
2024.
So, every once in a while, leadership forces people to grow up. So if you're put in charge of taking care of someone, lo and behold, you can rise to that occasion. So my curiosity really is, are we seeing a true evolution of Marjorie Taylor Greene into a leader? I'm not saying you have to agree with all her policies or even find all her policies. I'm not saying you have to forget, Jewish space lasers. I'm just more curious of, are we in real time watching the evolution of a human who is evolving into someone that is more focused on leading her constituents than being a TikTok star?
That's a tough one. It's really difficult because she's not, well, she does find herself in the public eye often, as does Donald Trump. He finds himself in there more often. But when you look at what it is that she is asking for at this juncture, it's hard to say that what she's asking for has changed versus what he has. And so it seems like on the surface, what you're saying, I don't know. It's like maybe not. Is she maturing? I don't know that she's maturing. I think it sounds like maybe she is holding her ground on what she has kind of always said, which was her opinion or her viewpoint of what MAGA was America first, right? Like that has been her stance. And she has been steadfast in that. And that has been it. Now, she has always been very much Donald Trump, but realized between 2020 and 2024, he wasn't in office, so he wasn't leading. So it was very, very easy to be pro Donald Trump when he wasn't flip-flopping on anything. He wasn't changing his positions. While she was in a position to be pro Donald Trump, his stance was MAGA, right? He wasn't doing anything different. His stance was, we were going to get these Epstein files. We were going to expose all the Democrats. We were going to do all these things. And that's what she was believing. Well, get to 2025, and her stance was MAGA, no foreign anything. And in fact, she was one of the first, if not one of the only, to call Gaza a genocide. But she was doing that while Biden was really more defensive of Israel, right? Like she was doing that when that was more against the Biden administration. So she's always been steadfast in her belief that was pro-America nationalist perspective, stay out of international affairs, stay very much nationalist, everything else. So is it that she's maturing, or is it that she's staying steady to what she's holding onto, which is don't touch anything foreign, don't give money to anything foreign, don't do anything outside of America, release the Epstein files because you've been talking about Epstein forever. You were going to release these files and everything else. And really what we're seeing is that Donald Trump is now saying, we're going to start doing warlike things in Venezuela. We're going to be getting involved in Gaza. We're doing all these things internationally, doing stuff in Qatar. He's doing all these things that are not America first in her viewpoint. He's not releasing Epstein files. And so is it really that she's maturing, or is she just staying on message, which he was fine with when he wasn't changing the message? So is it maturity, or is it that he's changing the message and she's just not going along with it? He was cool when her fealty was directly to him. Her fealty is to the MAGA message that she believed it to be. The message is changing. She's not changing with it.
Is this demonstrative of a bigger shift? As I said, the closer you get to someone, the more difficult it is to maintain your projections. So you're absolutely right. I think you nailed it 100%. During that 4-year period in which Donald Trump was not in power, his decisions really didn't matter. And he could hide behind this armor that was MAGA. MAGA was this nebulous thing. It could mean anything you wanted it to mean in any way you wanted it to mean. He could adjust it. And because the decisions didn't have consequences, the things he would say at rallies or whatever had no consequences, it was easier to absorb and to account for them and to justify them. So are we now seeing that in the real world, when these decisions that are more and more difficult to justify from a MAGA standpoint, or at least we're highlighting how everyone's defined MAGA differently, that is the canary in the coal mine for people's opinions about him?
For people's, it certainly is for her, right? Because she's staying steadfast on that message. Now, what I did leave out, and I apologize to anybody listening, is that she also does have constituents who are clearly hurt by the shutdown and are clearly being hurt by the tariffs, right? Like that's another piece because of the way that the money is affecting how they can afford food and things like that. So yes, I do think that psychologically, I mean, she is holding to her belief structure on MAGA and what that means. And I think if you built up your projections for what MAGA meant at a time when he was not in power, and you were holding on to that, but it's then shifting and you're having to shift with it. And there are a lot of Republicans who are really struggling to shift their viewpoints of what the Republican Party is becoming because they're spending a lot of money. This is not the Republican Party. This is not Reagan's Republican Party, right? Like they're spending money hand over fist in ways that they never did before. This is not fiscal conservatism, right? Like that's not what. So yes, the projection is crumbling in some ways because MAGA
Well,
is Play-Doh to Donald Trump. It's whatever he wants it to be when he needs it to be in the moment. But for people who jumped onto that train, it was what they needed it to be when they wanted it to be. And that's
they
going
were
to be
trauma
difficult
bonded
for
to
some
it.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, they were trauma bonded to MAGA. MAGA, this is a group of individuals who, for various reasons, and we've talked about them over the course of us doing this, but for various reasons, they are traumatized by a culture and an economy, a situation that is spiraling, it feels to them, out of their control. The old way of existence is disappearing. So they were traumatized by this. They bonded to MAGA. Now, what we're seeing is this rupture, and from a purely Marjorie Taylor Greene standpoint, it's scapegoating and shadow exile. And it's funny to me that now she's a lunatic, but really they're taking all the potentially lunatic-ish elements of MAGA and putting them on her. And she's a rhino now, which is that's lost meaning to me. Everyone becomes a rhino. But so she's being scapegoated and she's being exiled. But now the supporters that used to have them together, see them as one MAGA element, now that they've ruptured, those supporters are going to have to make some selections as to what MAGA means to them. Is it Marjorie Taylor Greene MAGA? Is it Trump MAGA? Or is there really a MAGA? And I'm wondering how this is going to play out in the psyches of these individuals. Now, I'm going to guess a good number of them because uncertainty tends to breed fervor. So I speculate that it'll make some more fervent in their support. But, in the context of inflation, the context of the holidays, people having to buy Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas gifts, the tension of the holidays is going to have ramifications in a greater culture. And we're going to see this in the next few months. And we should talk about it. We will.
I'm guessing that it'll be something along the lines of even how MAGA came up in the first place, which is similar to like the Tea Party movement, right? Like you have these little break-offs that gain their own momentum, right? They eventually snowball. The Republican Party didn't change overnight.
No.
It changed with these little fractures that eventually got big enough to then take over because people struggled. And I think a way to reconcile this in my own brain, and that's the only way I can really do that, is that if when I understand, especially with the MAGA movement, was that you had a group of people who did trauma bond to this idea because things were going a certain way, especially during COVID. And even before that, to be honest, like before that, during between 2016 and 2020, there was a big push culturally that really put people's behaviors into a corner. And you don't put baby in a corner.
No one puts baby in a corner.
There you go. And the problem I see is that when one person does something that you find distasteful, maybe that person can go away and maybe that person can kind of reinvent themselves and come back and maybe they're all right. But when it's a whole bunch of people, when you have a mob mentality on it, they don't just change, right? They don't just go away. They don't just disappear and everything gets better, especially when they're being villainized by another side, especially when they're being villainized and shamed greatly. You have like the hashtag Me Too movement and everything else, and people are being really swept up into this at such a rate. You've created a movement at that point. You've created a counter movement. You've created motion and power in some way, and that you've created MAGA. You've created that. And that's what we have. But it does tend to lose momentum when it tries to change, when it tries to evolve. And the people who trauma bonded to it realize that they don't want to evolve with it. They liked where it was. They liked where they got on board, and that this train is going in directions they don't want to go to because they don't want to go to Qatar. They're not benefiting from Bitcoin
Venezuela.
or they don't want to go to Venezuela. They don't want to be in another war. They don't want to be part of that. Yeah, exactly.
Amen. This does remind me also of narcissistic realignment. And for our tens of listeners, if you're ever wanting an interesting story, read about Freud in the early days of this psychoanalytic movement. Freud had, I think, no less than 6 heir apparents in the course of his time. Eventually, his daughter actually took over the movement. But this was a day where they almost approached this with a religious fervor and would only tolerate those who accepted all of his ideas completely. And he would connect to somebody, he would name them his heir apparent relatively quickly. And then when that up and coming leader, when their flamboyance risked overshadowing him, he would reject them, denounce them, kick them out of the movement, and he'd reclaim the spotlight. And he did this to Carl Jung. He did this to a number of others. And in fact, I think 2 of the 6 killed themselves. They were committed suicide because of this rupture. And Jung spent 2 years in a quasi-psychotic state after the rupture because he was exiled to the hinterlands, as it were. And we're kind of seeing that to a degree, this narcissistic realignment, that Marjorie Taylor Greene actually at this moment is probably more in line with the MAGA movement that most people define MAGA as, and her flamboyance was running the risk of overshadowing Trump or putting the spotlight on the fact that, hey, you're not being very MAGA, man, but you're supposed to be the most MAGA of the MAGA, and you're not being very MAGA. So what's the easiest thing to do? The easiest thing to do is to send her out to exile her to the hinterlands, say she's crazy, disavow it, and then you can redefine MAGA. So it's just an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, the history says Trump will probably survive this more than she will politically.
Maybe
He's much better at.
Well, he's got more of a megaphone.
Oh, he's better at taking the temperature of the people. He tends to and pushing things in the direction that he wants them to go. I mean, he's better at that, sure.
Well, For our tens of listeners, I'm going to leave you with a Mark Twain quote. So, David Drink: loyalty to a petrified opinion never broke a chain or freed a human soul. So, and this works both sides. I don't care which direction you're coming at, but loyalty to a petrified opinion, whether it be on the progressive side or the conservative side, is not actually moving us forward. Prescriptions.
Prescriptions. All right, I have one. So now that the shutdown is over, I believe that a good prescription for America would be that Congress be placed in a no pay, all work status for the next 43 days, is it? So they need to show up, work, and keep working, no pay.
No pay.
And if they don't produce anything, then it will just keep going. They need to show up every single day and do work. 43 straight days. And if they don't get any bills out, they don't do any legislating, then they will keep doing it. And no guaranteed back pay. I'd say let's not guarantee any back pay unless they actually produce some bills. What do you think? I think it's fair.
I'm down with it.
But I'd also
All right.
like to slap a non-essential worker tag onto all of their badges too. I think that's important too. It needs to say non-essential, but they need to show up every single day. No pay.
Absolutely. I'm going to encourage all of us to practice some emotional differentiation. Your identity is not the politician who disappointed you today. Because if Trump can drop MTG overnight, you don't need to fuse with anyone's narrative. And everyone should remember, as another quote, it was a philosopher named Dupin, but every revolution devours its own children. Your amygdala is not your party affiliation. You can make decisions and make choices and change your mind. And if somebody, a leader, is not living up to what they are committed to doing, it's okay to go a different route.
All right. Well, it was a sad week to not do the show. I'm glad we're back.
Me too.
I'm excited to get this one posted. I hope everyone missed us as much as I missed you.
All 10 of you. Absolutely. We're back in a groove now. So I'm going to leave us with another quote. I can't help it. I've been reading.
This is also why we can't miss a week,
I
because
know
the
it.
quotes build up.
They do. I've been reading a little bit of Soren Kierkegaard because I find him so relevant. Now, certainly wasn't the context in which he wrote, but it's just the topics about aestheticism that is relevant to me. But he has a quote that says, "The crowd is untruth," and we have to all remember that a nation survives by the stories that it tells itself. So what we have to get in the habit of is telling the stories that make us individually and our nation larger, not smaller. And, bottom line is, in the words of Matthew McConaughey, keep living, man. Live VIN.
Well, thanks for everyone for sticking around. We appreciate you so much. Smash that subscribe, share if you can. Sign up for our weekly newsletter on shrinkthenation.com, and we will come back at you next week. We've got a show we're recording together. It'll be fun. Till next time, cue up that music. We are out.